Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Rachel MacLynn is a psychologist and the founder of MacLynn International, which is a matchmaking agency. Rachel feels that if you don't have a network, then you don't have a business. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Rachel.
Very, very nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, you run an award-winning matchmaking agency, but tell me about your background first and what your previous roles have been.
Well, my background started in the world of psychology. I went to university to study psychology and then progressed straight from my undergraduate degree straight into a master's in occupational psychology or business psychology, and progressed my early career in that field. I was very fortunate to get into quite a strong position with my very first graduate role as a psychologist supporting adults with acquired brain injury. So I did that for a few years in my early 20s. And then I worked for the Department for Work and Pensions for a while. That was 2 or 3 years as well. And it was really then through a moment of serendipity that I fell into matchmaking. So kind of still progressing my interest in the world of psychology, but really applying my expertise in a very, very different way and for a very different type of clientele.
Yeah. And so what was it that drew you to psychology in the first place? Because it's not something that we tend to sort of study at school or maybe until A levels. But what attracted you to that?
Yeah, so psychology, I think when I was in my teens, I probably didn't really even know what
Yeah.
psychology meant. Um, what I did know was that I was always really naturally fascinated by people. I was very secure in my own well-being. I suppose when I was growing up, I had a really solid group of friends. I had hardships that I went through, and my friendship group in particular really became my almost like a second family to me. And when I was at school, I found myself just observing from afar school bullies. And we didn't have like any huge issue with it in my school, but there was 1 or 2 people, and I thought, I just don't understand how someone can get such a kick out of
Yeah.
being horrible to other people. Um, so I would observe. I was never affected by it myself, but I would observe and I would talk about it. And also, a lot of my friends would come to me with their problems and all sorts of things that were happening in their lives. And I am very much not a gossipy person, never have been, don't think I ever will be. So I loved that people knew that they could trust me to come and confide in all sorts of with all sorts of different issues. And I think on the back of that, I sort of became known as the agony aunt of my friendship group. And on the back of that, it was actually my friends who said to me, you really should be going and studying psychology because you are a natural psychologist. And that's really where that inspiration came from.
Yeah. So after you'd had your first sort of few roles in psychology, what was it that made you decide to go it alone and to set up your own business?
Um, well, that was a very terrifying decision that I made. And I have to be honest, at no point in my career did I ever think that I would go off and set up on my own. Never at all did I think that. I always thought that I would always stay in the world of employment. So I was working as a matchmaker for another agency in London, and I just fell in love with matchmaking as a career path. Um, and after I had worked as an employed matchmaker for a few years, I think I started to get itchy feet, and just that sort of unsettled feeling, didn't quite know where I should go or what I should do or what the next step was, but I just knew that I had something more in me. And it was, I think I then kind of had something on my radar where it was like a light switched on, and I thought, I don't know what is coming next, but I know that I want something to change, and I want another level of progression. And maybe there was sense of manifestation that was going on then, or maybe it was just that I was trying to open up my mind to different opportunities. I think that what happened was I started talking to other people about, that I wasn't, sure what I was going to do next. And I then had a really sort of strange experience where over a period of about 2 or 3 weeks, there are 4 different people that I knew and trusted a lot in my life who are all very accomplished business people, none of whom know each other, but they all on different instances within a short period of time sat me down and said, you should be setting up your own agency. Why are you not doing this on your own? Because you are you know what to do, and you've got the confidence and the experience behind you. And in each of those conversations, I laughed it off and thought, don't be silly. That's not who I am. I'm not that person. But I think it started to just play in my mind a little bit. And then I always sort of looked to the future and think about different scenarios. And I thought, gosh, well, I think I was in my early 30s at the time. And I thought, where am I going to be in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? And I thought, you know what, this is actually the one opportunity that I will probably have to really just bite the bullet and try and see. And maybe that is the change that I need. Because I was young, free and single, and I had no one to answer to. And I thought, if it all goes belly up, I can go and get a job somewhere. I know I'm employable. So, what is really the risk? And I don't want to look back with regret. So I woke up one morning and I had completely changed my tune from 24 hours before of saying absolutely not a chance to, oh my goodness, I'm actually going to do this. So I handed my notice in and off I went, and just thought, I'll give it 6 months, see what happens. If it doesn't work out, at least I've tried. And that was kind of how I decided to get started.
And how quickly did it get to the point where you thought, yes, this is going to fly, this is what I'm going to keep doing now?
Very quickly, actually. So on the very first day, I mean, it's quite funny actually thinking back to the beginning. The very first day I was officially sort of self-employed, I was literally Googling, how do you set up a business? I had no idea. I had no idea. I had no idea how accounting systems worked. I had no idea how to send invoices. There were so many things I was just completely clueless about. But I knew how to matchmake. So one thing that I did really was just take it all a day at a time and do my research and do my learning. And then before I knew it, it was probably really within the first few weeks, and I was out networking a lot. I mean, my whole life for that first 3 years was pretty much back to back networking. And I realized that I was getting up every morning and all I wanted to do was sit at my computer, to the point that I would get up out of bed, make myself a cup of coffee and some breakfast, and I would sit at my computer in my pajamas. And then my boyfriend at the time would go out to work, and he would come home at 7 o'clock, and I would still be sat in my pajamas. And I had barely moved, and he was like, "You look like you're sat there with some sort of rigor mortis. You just Have you even eaten anything today?" And I was like, "No, I'm just like reading all this information. This is so interesting." I think it gave me a sense of energy, and it gave me a sense of being more alive than I'd ever felt before. So just that feeling and that excitement made me realize that this is absolutely what I'm going to do now for the rest of my career. That I've made totally the right decision.
Fantastic. So tell me about the service that you offer now. How does it work, and what kind of demographic are your clients?
So our demographic are honestly the most amazing people that I have ever had the pleasure of coming into contact with in my life. I grew up in Belfast in a sort of pretty middle of the road, middle class family background, nice, all the usual stuff, went to grammar school. In this international world that my clients enjoy and live was not part of my upbringing at all. And staying in 5-star hotels and flying private jet, all these things, that, to me, that just all sounded like a fairy tale. And that's kind of what drew me to it, because I thought I've got by being a matchmaker, I've got the opportunity to actually live in a fairy tale.
Yeah.
So then when I set my business up, I thought, well, I want to be surrounded by people who inspire me. So I thought, I'm going to aim for the top of the top of the top. Now, that's not to say, a lot of my clients are very, very, very successful. And some of them are inspiring in different ways. This is not necessarily about money being a sort of sign of success. Some people are just very well educated, or they have made just amazing progressions and achievements in their own lives in lots of different ways. The privilege I have is that I get to sit down with, well, in the early days, I sat down with everybody myself, and now my team do a lot of the actual matchmaking. But we as a team get to sit down and hear their individual stories, which is just incredible. It's really incredible. And to add on to that, then having that influence of, we're going to help you find love. And we're going to help guide you in terms of how to identify who's compatible with you. We're going to guide you in terms of making sure that you don't allow yourself to fall for the wrong type of person. So we're there very much as consultants, psychologists in many instances, and are really guiding our clients towards a successful relationship. So we're, in some ways, the service that we offer is really like the cherry on the cake, in terms of their lives, which are already incredibly full and successful.
Yeah. So how much information do you need to collect from people to really be able to make a good match for them?
Huge amounts of information. So we guide our clients through 5 key stages of a sort of a full consultative process, really. So we start by getting to know the client as an individual before we start delving into who do you want to meet. So we gather a lot of information. We do a lot of value assessment with our client, so we can help to understand what it is that is important to them, what's inspired them in their lives, why they've made certain decisions, how important friendship is to them, what that means, how important is health and well-being, what does religion mean in their life, and various other topics. So we split their lives into 9 key segments. So career being one, lifestyle being another, health being another, for example. And we ask a lot of questions around each of those segments, to try and pull to the surface their values, their attitudes, and their beliefs. And we do all of that. That's quite involved and very detailed before we even move it on to the next stage in the consultative process, which is using that initial information about them to start to build a much more accurate representation of the type of partner that they should be looking for. So we do a lot of reading and research into the psychology of compatibility, so that we can help to guide our clients to make sure that finding a partner is not some sort of shopping expedition where you can just sort of chop and change what takes your fancy this week. It really should be something which is driven much more from within. So we're constantly consulting with our clients to try and help guide them in terms of the type of person. The third stage in our consultative process is about not just the person that they're looking for, but the actual relationship dynamics. So what sort of roles would they want to play in their relationship, and what are their love languages, and what sort of communication styles do they have, and how do we factor in if there are maybe children already involved from previous relationships, and where they're going to live. And there's just lots of things to consider about these short term. How do we make the dating experience work in the short term, but also let's think to 5 and 10 years in the future, what would that look like? Just to make sure that people are progressing their dating lives with complete clarity. And then when we once we've done all of that, then we're looking at the actual matches. So again, that's a very consultative process where we're selecting matches that we think on paper appear to be compatible. We're discussing those profiles with our client, explaining where the compatibility is in our view and getting their feedback. We're gathering feedback and having a full discussion back and forth throughout the 6 or 12 months that we're working with each client. So with every interaction that they have through us, they're continuously learning about themselves and progressing incrementally closer towards finding someone successfully. So all of that is done with the overall aim of our clients being able to really date with meaning and purpose rather than approaching it as some kind of numbers game, which is what most people do.
Yeah. And I'm sure that the question that everyone has is, how successful are you at matching people? And have you been to any weddings?
I would like to say I'm pretty successful, myself and as a team. So we have had some incredible successes with our clients. We have we obviously are very much kept within a vault of privacy and confidentiality with our clients, but as a team we share successes all the time. So probably every day or every few days we're updating each other as a team on whether there's an engagement that has happened or there's baby news or someone's just had a wedding. And our clients, a lot of them will keep in contact with us and they'll send us updates on, here's some photographs and of our wedding or engagement, which is just so nice to see. And I think for me, it's particularly rewarding when we see two people getting together and having a really happy relationship who maybe originally lived in different parts of the world. And we've been able to sort of pluck these individuals out of the global singles world of multi-millions of single people, and being able to identify those two individuals as being compatible and then seeing it blossom from there.
Yeah, it must be a really rewarding job.
It's lots of very heartwarming moments. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's lovely. And do you deal with people of all different genders and sexualities, or is it just heterosexual couples that you put together?
Yeah, no, all genders, all sexualities. We're fully inclusive. Having said that, we are a small team, so we know that there is a limit to what we limit to the resource that we have as a team. But part of our longer term vision for the business is to continuously learn about different cultures, different religions, any human being really on the planet who wants to use our service. We want to be able to welcome a conversation with them and really embrace their individuality. Of course, part of the service that we deliver is being able to source the matches for them. So that's where we would say, well, look, if we can source the matches, great, let's get going. If we can't source the matches because our team isn't big enough to be able to do that, then we look at alternative options. But that for me, that very much inspires the future growth of the business and sort of expanding into new areas.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned networking already, so let's have a chat about that now. So how much networking were you doing then back in the early days?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, I would say the first 5 years of the business, I think it was 5 years, we did no advertising. So every client that we brought in those first few years was due to some form of networking. For the first 2 or 3 years, our team was, well, the first few months, it was only me. So it was just, me, myself, and I doing absolutely everything on my own. After a year, there was a team of 3 of us. So we would zip around London, like little Duracell bunnies, and going to all sorts of different networking events. And so the in-person networking on LinkedIn, networking on some of the sort of more upmarket social groups. So there's a Small World, which is quite popular in London, and the is it Internations, I think. Various different networking groups that appeal to different demographics. So we would go along to all sorts of different events, drinks parties, private members clubs, and art galleries where you're sort of schmoozing with high profile individuals. That's always good fun. And you get to experience really cool venues in London as well that normally you wouldn't get access to. So that was always quite interesting. But yeah, for my first year, I set myself a target of not actually bringing in any revenue. I was too terrified to even think about where I was going to get the revenue from. I just thought, I don't have a business if I don't have a network. And I had to start my business completely from scratch. So on my first day of setting up the business, in between Googling how do you run a business, I wrote a list of 20 names of people that I knew personally who were single. And I called each of them or emailed them and asked if I could go and meet them for coffee, and basically explained, I've just set up my business, I know you're single, and I would like to profile you and put you in my database, and you will be one of what I hope will become 500 single people by the end of the year. So that was my goal. Find 500 single people. Don't worry about any money. I'm happy to live off beans and toast while I get this set up. So I did that, and I thought I need to go to probably 3 networking events a week. And I realized that there was actually a very strong pattern that started to unfold. So by going to 3 networking events a week, I would gather enough business cards. And by the way, I'm very shy socially, so I was totally putting myself outside my comfort zone, but I knew it was either do or die.
Yeah.
So I would go to these events and come away with so many business cards, and then the next day I would be sat at my computer, probably in my pajamas again, and sending lots of emails to people to follow up. And I, by doing that, I realized that every month I was profiling about 50 people and getting them added into my database. And I thought, okay, well, I'm kind of building a rhythm here. I'm going to hit my target of 500 people, which, was just a target I'd just plucked out of thin air. And on the back of that, I also then realized, which was a very a nice outcome, which I hadn't anticipated, is that every time I spoke to roughly 50 people, so roughly once a month, someone out of that group would say, well, I don't just want to be sat in your database waiting for one day for you to maybe call me or maybe not call me. I'm actually really serious about finding a partner. So if I become a client, what would that look like? So I would go through them. Oh, okay, well, I've only just set up, but blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that on average, once a month, I was actually signing a client up by doing that as well. So within my first year of business, I was already turning over 6 figures just from going to 3 networking events a week. And so I was able to progress from beans and toast to proper meals again, which was nice.
Well, if that's not a good advert for networking, I don't know what is.
Yeah. I mean, it genuinely, that if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have the business I have today. I didn't, it was I had no funding to set up. It was totally all done on a shoestring.
Yeah. And so at those early networking meetings that you went to, what kind of reaction did you get from people? Because you're a pretty niche business.
Well, back in those days, which was in 2011, most people reacted by laughing, or coming out with all sorts of comments about, what they thought about, oh, dating agencies, what's that, sort of some sort of escorting. I'm like,
Oh,
no, it's
no.
really not. And so I had to really, really over explain what it was that I did for a living. And so that was quite challenging. But I also found it quite amusing that I would have a lot of bravado, especially from men. If I was
Mm.
speaking to them at a networking event, they'd be like, oh, what's all this? I don't need a matchmaker. And they would sort of be teasing me and all sorts of things. And then, I would take it on the chin and then move on, and I'd work the room and be moving on to the next person. And it was unbelievable how many times I would then have a little tap on my shoulder and I would turn around and it would be the same guy, sort of discreetly, here's my business card, can you please give me a call tomorrow? Actually, I'm quite interested in this. So yeah, that was always made me chuckle. Fast forward to today, or actually, even in 2012, that's when Tinder was launched, and all of a sudden some form of dating service became, very much put dating on the map in terms of the sort of commercial style of dating that we know today. But now people are, everyone is using some sort of dating app. So the reaction now is, cool, you're a matchmaker, that's interesting. Oh, and you're a chartered psychologist as well. Well, yeah, brilliant. That, and can you give me some advice on this, or how does this serve? And whenever I meet someone who's single, they're immediately interested and fascinated and impressed. But believe me, it was not like that in the early days. So it's taken quite a few years for me to
And
get to the stage.
and
Yeah.
what does networking look like for your business now?
Networking. So I don't do as much anymore because I'm busy running my team. But we still do a lot of networking as a business. So whether it is going to networking events, I think we're probably sort of networking in a slightly different way through, we do deliver quite a few talks at private members clubs. So that is allowing us to kind of market ourselves, and then there will be a networking component afterwards where people can network with each other in the room, but we're also networking with the audience and gathering their contact details, and by delivering a talk, that allows us to really draw in a captive audience of people that we're assuming are single. So that's quite interesting. We do a lot of networking on LinkedIn, on Instagram. So social media platforms have become now, the big form of networking, and particularly on the back of the pandemic, when that was the only form of networking for a while, rather than in person. But in addition to that, our network now of sort of active single people that we have profiled all individually sits at about 22,000 right now, that we have built up over the last 12 years or so. So that also gives us an opportunity to network within our existing network. So we're continuously asking for referrals, or we have our members and clients asking us if they can make referrals, and because they have single people that are within their own professional or personal networks that would also like to use the service. So I think your networking takes lots of different guises, and we explore absolutely every single one of them.
Yeah, well, that's been absolutely fascinating finding out about your business. Just one last question, Rachel. If people want to find you, what is the best place for them to do that?
You can find us through our website, which is MacLynninternational.com. MacLynn is MacLynn. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram. I have an amazing team of matchmakers who are all very approachable and very friendly. So in addition to the actual formal matchmaking that we deliver, we also deliver date coaching and sort of dating consultancy sessions for, as little as 1 hour, right up to packages that last for 6 to 12 months. So yeah, for anyone who is serious about finding a compatible partner for a long-term committed relationship, there's almost certainly something that we can do to help.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for being my guest today, and the best of luck with your ongoing matchmaking.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Small Business Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.